Before we begin, I want you to close your eyes for just a moment. Imagine you are standing in a forest in the highland mountains of what is now Guatemala. It is before dawn. There is a fire burning at the center of a circle of people. The smoke rises into the darkness and carries prayers with it. A clay vessel is passed slowly from hand to hand. Inside it is a warm liquid, the color of deep earth. It smells of smoke and spice and something ancient and sweet. When it reaches your hands, you do not just drink it, but you receive it. That is what cacao ceremony actually was. Not the Instagram aesthetic of a crystal bowl and rose petals, not a women's circle with playlist and guided meditation, not something that was invented in a Bali wellness retreat in 2015. What I just described to you is a ceremony that is thousands of years old, one that belonged to specific people, specific traditions, specific cosmologies, and a specific sacred relationship with a plant that those people understood as a living medicine and a divine gift. Today, we are going to honor that. We are going to go all the way back. And when we come back to the present, you are going to understand the difference between taking something and receiving it, between appropriating a tradition and genuinely appreciating it. Because cacao deserves better than what the wellness industry has done with it, and so do the people it came from.
We're going beyond horizons, where the mind and spirit meet, where the body finds its balance and the soul feels complete. Every story, every journey, every healing step we take, we're living life with purpose, with every breath we make. Beyond horizons, we rise.
Welcome to Beyond Horizyns. I am Sugita-Jackson, certified nutritionist, master herbalist, and tea alchemist. And this is the show where we explore holistic wellness, ancient wisdom, modern science, and honest human conversation all in one space. Every episode on this show, we take a topic that matters and give it the depth it deserves. We do not skim the surface, we go to the root. We bring the research, we bring the tradition, and we bring the practical tools that help you actually live what you learn. Today's episode is one I have been waiting to make for a very long time, because cacao is a subject I know personally. I have studied it, worked with it for over 20 years, and been taught its ceremonial traditions by an indigenous teacher who understood not just the recipe, but the reverence. What we are covering today is the full picture, the ancient civilizations, the plant itself, the fire ceremony that cacao was always a part of, the health and pharmacological science, the herbal blending traditions, the 5 elemental recipes you can make at home, and the honest, respectful conversation about how people in the modern wellness world can engage with this tradition without erasing where it came from. Quick note before we dive in. Horizyns is a holistic wellness marketplace and community platform launching in 2026. If you are a seeker, a creator, or a practitioner in this space, this is being built just for you. Learn more or schedule a demo at www.horizynsinc.com. That's HORIZYNSINC.com. Link is in the show notes. The story of cacao does not begin with chocolate. It does not begin with Valentine's Day or Swiss confectionery or a Cadbury advertisement. It begins with the Olmec civilization, one of the oldest Mesoamerican cultures flourishing along the Gulf Coast of what is now Mexico from approximately 1500 to 400 BCE. Linguistic analysis by scholars, including Michael Coe and anthropologist Sophie Coe, documented in their landmark work The True History of Chocolate, suggests that the word cacao itself is Olmec in origin. Chemical residue analysis of ancient Olmec ceramic vessels has confirmed the presence of theobromine and caffeine, the signature compounds of the Theobroma cacao plant, dating back over 3,000 years. The Olmec were not making chocolate bars, they were fermenting, roasting, grinding, and consuming chocolate or cacao, as a liquid medicine and ceremonial offering. It was the Maya civilization flourishing from approximately 250 CE through the Spanish conquest of the 16th century, who developed the most sophisticated and spiritually profound relationship with cacao in the ancient world. In Maya cosmology, cacao was not simply a plant. It was a divine gift. The Dresden Codex and the Madrid Codex, two of the only four surviving pre-Columbian Maya books, contained repeated imagery of deities associated with cacao offering. The Maya god of cacao was called Echua, the patron of merchants and cacao growers, depicted in imagery surrounded by cacao pods. But cacao's sacred significance ran far deeper than a single deity. The Popol Vuh, the Maya creation narrative, connects cacao to the very substance of human creation. In this cosmological framework, consuming cacao in ritual was understood as participating in the act of creation itself. The cacao tree was called a world tree. The pods that grow directly from its trunk, a botanical phenomenon called cauliflory that is unusual in the plant kingdom, were understood as the tree bearing its heart outward. That image of the heart given openly is central to understanding why cacao was associated with love, life force, and sacred offering. Maya elite consumed cacao at births, deaths, betrothals, and major ritual occasions. It was documented in the burial chamber of Maya rulers. Vessels containing cacao residue have been found in royal tombs, indicating that cacao accompanied the dead into the afterlife. This was not a casual beverage. It was sacred medicine at every threshold of human existence. The Aztec civilization of central Mexico had a different but equally profound relationship with cacao. They traded it, taxed it, and used the dry beans as currency. A single turkey cost approximately 100 cacao beans in Aztec markets. A tamale cost a handful. Like tea, cacao was literally money, and that tells you how deeply embedded it was in civilization's entire structure. For the Aztec, cacao was also cosmologically significant. It was associated with Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent deity understood as the bringer of wisdom, civilization, and divine gifts to humanity. The mythological narrative in which Quetzalcoatl brings cacao from the garden of the gods to human beings is one of the most important origin stories in Aztec tradition. Consuming cacao in ceremony was understood as receiving a gift from the divinity directly. The Spanish conquistador Hernando Cortes documented that the Aztec ruler Moctezuma II consumed cacao in large quantities, reportedly drinking 50 or more portions daily from golden vessels. The preparation Montezuma consumed was not sweet. It was bitter, spiced, and frothy, prepared with chili, vanilla, achiote, and other herbs in combination that were specific, intentional, and pharmacologically deliberate. Now to share something that my own teacher explained to me, and that the historical record supports completely. There was no standalone cacao ceremony in the pre-Columbian Mesoamerican world. What existed were fire rituals, shamanic ceremonies of great complexity and sacred purpose, performed by trained ritual specialists who had spent years in preparation. These ceremonies involved fire as a living divine presence, specific prayers and invocations to specific deities, astronomical timing aligned with the Maya calendar, offerings of copal incense, flowers, and sacred objects, and within that larger ceremonial container, the preparation and sharing of cacao as one of several sacred elements. The fire was not the backdrop. The fire was the center. In Maya and Aztec cosmology, fire was the breath of the divine, made visible in the physical world. The Maya fire deity, Coil, associated with lightning, sap, and the animating life force, was understood to be present in every ceremonial flame. The Aztec New Fire ceremony, which occurred every 52 years at the completion of a full calendar cycle, extinguished every fire in the empire and then rekindled the world from a single sacred flame. Fire was not ambiance. Fire was the mechanism of cosmic renewal. Cacao was offered into this fire. It was prepared within the fire's light. It was consumed in states of heightened spiritual intention that the fire helped to create. And the entire container was held by a trained ceremonial specialist who understood the cosmological framework, the specific herbs, the prayers, the timing, and the responsibility of holding space for others in genuine contact with the sacred. Cacao was not the ceremony. Cacao was the medicine within the ceremony, and the ceremony was fire. Here is something that almost no one in the modern wellness cacao space talks about, and it is among the most sophisticated aspects of this entire tradition. The cacao drink prepared for ceremony was never a single ingredient preparation. It was an intentional multi-herb medicine, blended according to the purpose of the ceremony, the elemental qualities being invoked and the specific healing or spiritual intention being held. The historical record confirms that documented additions to ceremonial cacao included chili pepper for fire and activation, vanilla for softening and aromatic elevation, achiote for its blood-red life force color and its vibrational connection to sacred offering, allspice for its complex earthy warmth, and the flower of Quarabia funebris, which is documented with mild psychoactive properties and was specifically associated with ritual cacao preparation in Aztec sources. The deeper oral tradition, the knowledge that was deliberately not written down to protect it from colonial destruction, held specific herbal powder blends corresponding to the elemental directions of Mesoamerican cosmology: earth, air, fire, water, and the fifth direction that Mesoamerican traditions understood not as compass point, but as the center and the upward connection to spirit. Each elemental direction had its own quality, its own associated plants, and its own purpose within ceremony, and a skilled ceremonial practitioner would select the appropriate blend based on what the ceremonial was calling for, what the participants needed, and what the fire was saying. That knowledge is living oral tradition. It was protected precisely because it was too sacred to be written down, where anyone could take it without understanding what they were holding. The botanical name for that cacao tree is Theobroma cacao. Theobroma comes from the Greek word theos, meaning God, and broma, meaning food, food of the gods. The 18th century botanist Carl Linnaeus gave it that name in 1753, and whether he intended it as a scientific classification or a poetic acknowledgement, he landed on exactly what the Maya had understood for thousands of years. The tree itself is unusual. It grows only within 20 degrees of the equator. It is extremely sensitive, requiring specific humidity, shade, and soil conditions that exist primarily in tropical forest environments, and it exhibits cauliflory, the remarkable botanical phenomenon of growing its fruit pods directly from the trunk and main branches rather than from the outermost twigs. To the Maya, a tree that bears its pod from its heart, from the center of its own body, was a tree that was offering itself. That image is not merely poetic, it shaped the entire cosmological understanding of that particular plant. Raw ceremonial grade cacao is one of the most pharmacologically complex and nutrient-dense plants known to science, and the experience of consuming it at ceremonial doses is genuinely different from eating commercial chocolate. Here's why. Theobromine is the primary active compound in cacao and is responsible for most of the stimulant and cardiovascular effects. Unlike caffeine, which produces a sharp spike and crash, theobromine produces a gentler, longer, and more sustained increase in heart rate and circulation. Research published in the Journal of Psychopharmacology documents theobromine's vasodilatory effects, meaning it relaxes and widens blood vessels, which increases blood flow to the brain and throughout the body. At ceremonial doses, this produces a warmth that moves through the chest and limbs that practitioners have described for centuries as the heart-opening quality of cacao. The science is showing us exactly what the tradition has always said. The plant literally opens circulation to the heart. Phenylethylamine, sometimes called the love molecule, is a naturally occurring compound in cacao that the brain also produces during the states of excitement, attraction, and joy. Research published in the Journal of Neurochemistry documents phenylethylamin's role in dopamine and serotonin modulation. Raw cacao is one of the highest known dietary sources of this compound. Anandamide, whose name derives from the Sanskrit word ananda, meaning bliss, is an endocannabinoid, a compound the brain produces naturally that interacts with the same receptors as cannabis. Cacao contains both anandamide itself and compounds called N acetylethanolamine that inhibit the breakdown of anandamide in the brain, effectively prolonging the bliss response. Research at the Neurosciences Institute in San Diego documented this mechanism, which helps explain the mood-elevating and mildly euphoric quality of ceremonial cacao experiences. Magnesium is present in raw cacao at extraordinarily high levels. A single ceremonial dose of approximately 40 grams of raw cacao provides a significant portion of the daily recommended intake of magnesium. Magnesium is essential for muscle relaxation, nervous system regulation, sleep quality, and the reduction of anxiety. Many Western adults are chronically deficient in magnesium. The relaxed, grounded, open quality that follows a ceremonial cacao experience is partly neurologically mediated by the magnesium load. The flavonoid content of raw cacao, specifically epicatechin and catechins, are among the most potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory compounds documented in any food source. Research published in Nature documented that the flavonoid content of raw cacao exceeds that of blueberries, red wine, and green tea by significant margins. These compounds have documented cardiovascular protective effects, neuroprotective properties, and an anti-inflammatory activity at the cellular level. Tryptophan, the precursor to serotonin, is also present in meaningful quantities in raw cacao. Combined with theobromine, phenylethylamine, anandamide, and magnesium, what you have in a properly prepared ceremonial cacao is not a cup of hot chocolate. You have a multi-compound, pharmacologically sophisticated plant medicine that the ancient Mesoamericans understood intuitively and that modern biochemistry is still mapping. Raw cacao versus commercial chocolate. Understanding this requires knowing what processing destroys. Raw ceremonial grade cacao paste or powder is minimally processed. The cacao beans are fermented to develop flavor compounds, then dried and ground at low temperatures that preserve the active constituents. What you get is the full pharmacological profile of the plant. Dutch processed cocoa powder, the most common form found in supermarkets, is treated with alkalizing agents to reduce bitterness and improve color. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry documented that the alkalizing process destroys between 60 and 90% of the flavonoid content. The theobromine and the phenylethylamine are significantly reduced. The anandamide precursors are damaged. What remains is primarily the flavor without the actual medicine. Commercial chocolate adds dairy, refined sugar, and emulsifiers. Dairy, not plant milks, has been shown in research published in the journal Free Radical Biology and Medicine to bind directly to the cacao flavonoids and block their absorption. The milk essentially cancels the medicine. Dark chocolate with high cacao content and no dairy retains more of the active compounds than milk chocolate, but still falls short of raw ceremonial grade material. The dose matters enormously. The typical amount of cacao in a piece of commercial chocolate is measured in grams. A ceremonial dose of raw cacao paste is typically between 35 and 50 grams consumed as a warm preparation. The pharmacological experience is genuinely different in kind, not just in degree. Because ceremonial cacao is genuinely pharmacologically active, certain individuals should approach it with care or consult a healthcare provider before use. This is very important. People taking MAOI antidepressants should avoid ceremonial doses of cacao entirely. The combination of theobromine and tyramine in cacao with MAIOs can produce dangerous blood pressure elevations. People with serious heart conditions or arrhythmias should consult their cardiologist before consuming ceremonial doses due to the significant cardiovascular stimulant effects of theobromine at those quantities. Pregnant women should consume cacao only in moderate food amounts and should not consume ceremonial doses without medical guidance. This is not meant to frighten anyone. It is meant to honor the reality that this is a genuine medicine, and real medicine deserves real respect. The modern wellness industry has done something to cacao ceremony that we need to name clearly and without judgment, but also without softening. It has extracted the aesthetic and left behind the actual meaning. The images that most people associate with cacao ceremony today include a beautiful facilitator in linen clothing holding a ceramic bowl, rose petals, crystals arranged on an altar, soft music, a guided visualization, and a group of men and women in a circle having a heart-opening experience. And let me be clear, there is nothing wrong with that experience itself. Community, intention, warmth, and plant medicine are genuinely valuable things. What is wrong is calling it a traditional cacao ceremony without acknowledging where it actually came from and what was stripped away in the translation. As my teacher helped me understand, and as the historical record confirms, there was no standalone cacao ceremony. What existed was a shamanic fire ritual performed by trained lineage holders within a specific cosmological framework, using cacao as one element within a much larger sacred container. The fire, the prayers, the astronomical timing, the specific herbal blends, the years of training required to hold that space, all of it was the ceremony. Cacao was the medicine within that ceremony. When the modern wellness world extracted only the cacao and the circle, it performed an act of cultural reduction. It took one element from an integrated sacred system and presented it as the whole thing. That is the definition of cultural appropriation. Not malicious intent necessarily, but the consumption of a tradition without its context. Cultural appreciation looks different. It looks like learning the history before leading others in practice. It looks like sourcing ceremonial-grade cacao from Maya and indigenous heritage regions and paying fair trade prices that actually benefit the communities the tradition came from. It looks like naming the Olmec, the Maya, and the Aztec by name. It looks like acknowledging the fire ceremony tradition even if you cannot fully replicate it. It looks like teaching participants what they are receiving, not just how it will make them feel. It also looks like honesty about your own lineage. Are you a trained ceremonial practitioner with a direct lineage connection to this tradition? Or are you someone who has learned about this tradition respectfully and is offering an inspired practice informed by it? Both can be valid. Only one of them is honest about what it is. You do not have to be Maya to honor what the Maya created. You do have to be honest about who you are, what you know, and what you are offering. The living Maya ceremonial tradition continues today, particularly in the highlands of Guatemala. Lineage holders and trained shamans called Adi in the Quechua Maya tradition continue to perform authentic fire ceremonies with cacao as part of the living spiritual practice of their people. They are not historical artifacts. They are living practitioners. And the most powerful thing the modern wellness world can do is learn their names, support their communities, and approach their tradition with the reverence it has always deserved. Now, let's bring this into the kitchen, because one of the most beautiful ways to honor this tradition is to prepare cacao with the same intentionality, the same attention to elemental quality, and the same understanding of how plant combinations work together that the original practitioners brought to every preparation. Each of these 5 recipes uses exactly 3 herbal powders carefully selected for their elemental correspondence, their pharmacological energy and synergy with cacao, and most importantly, their flavor harmony, because a preparation that honors the tradition should also be genuinely delicious. The base for all 5 of these recipes is the same. Use 2 heaping tablespoons of ceremonial-grade raw cacao paste or powder per serving. Heat 8 to 10 ounces of water to just below boiling, approximately 85 to 90 degrees Celsius. Blend or whisk vigorously until fully combined and slightly frothy. Sweeten slightly with raw honey or coconut sugar only after tasting, because each blend has its own natural complexity that sweetener can overwhelm. 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon of each herbal powder is the starting dose for all 5 blends. Begin with less and adjust to your taste and your body's response. Now, let's look at the 5 blends. First, we'll start with Earth Element, the grounding blend. Earth corresponds to the South in Mesoamerican cosmological frameworks. It is associated with the body, nourishment, stability, roots, and the capacity to be fully present in physical form. This blend is for grounding, for bringing scattered energy back into the body, and for the kind of deep centering that makes genuine inner work possible. The three herbs you'll use are maca root powder, mesquite pod powder, and cinnamon powder. The flavor profile for this is naturally sweet and deeply earthy, with a warmth that settles in the chest. The mesquite adds a subtle smokiness that echoes the fire ceremony tradition. The cinnamon rounds the bitterness of the cacao into a rounded, comforting complexity. This is the blend you make on your mornings when you need to feel anchored. Maca is documented in research published in Menopause and the Asian Journal of Andrology for its adaptogenic effects on energy and hormonal balance. Mesquite is a prebiotic fiber source with a low glycemic index, and cinnamon has documented blood glucose regulatory effects confirmed in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And now for the air element, the clarity blend. Air corresponds to the east and to the mind, communication, breath, and the capacity to receive inspiration and perceive what is subtle. This blend is for mental clarity, creative openness, and the kind of light alert receptivity that makes meditation and visionary work accessible. The three herbs you will use are vanilla bean powder, cardamom powder, and ashwagandha root powder. This is the most aromatic and refined of the 5 blends. Vanilla lifts the cacao into something light and almost floral. Cardamom adds a bright, slightly citrus note that opens the sinuses and elevates the palate. Ashwagandha adds a subtle earthiness that keeps the blend from being too airy. Together, they produce a cup that smells extraordinary and tastes divine. Vanilla contains vanillin, documented in the journal Chemical Senses as having measurable anaphylactic and mood-stabilizing effects through olfactory processing. Cardamom has documented antioxidant and anti-anxiety effects in research published in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology. Ashwagandha's HPA axis modulating effects have been confirmed in multiple double-blind trials, as discussed in our earlier Herbal Wisdom episode. Now for the fire element. The activation blend. Fire corresponds to transformation, courage, passion, and the life force that drives action and change. This is the most traditionally documented of the 5 blends. Chili in cacao is not a modern fusion experiment. It is the oldest known intentional cacao preparation in the archaeological record. This blend is for ceremony, for activation, for moving stagnant energy, and for connecting to the transformative fire at the center of the tradition. This one has cayenne pepper powder, ginger root powder, and allspice powder. This blend is bold and unapologetic. The cayenne creates immediate warmth that builds from the back of the throat. Ginger adds a bright, sharp heat that is different in character from cayenne and produces a pleasant, layered warmth. Allspice adds complexity, a blend of clove, cinnamon, and pepper notes that makes this preparation smell and taste exactly like what it is, ancient. Start with very small amounts of cayenne and build gradually. This is not a mild cup of cacao. Capsicum in cayenne has well-documented effects on circulation, metabolic rate, and the release of endorphins, documented in the British Journal of Nutrition. Gingerols in ginger have anti-inflammatory and pro-circulatory effects confirmed in multiple peer-reviewed trials. Allspice contains eugenol, documented as an analgesic and anti-inflammatory compound in the Journal of Medicinal Food. Now for the water element, the flow blend. Water corresponds to the West, to emotion, intuition, the unconscious, healing, and the capacity to feel deeply and move through what arises rather than against it. This blend is for emotional processing, for grief, for shadow work, for the kind of inner flow that requires softness rather than force. The 3 herbs you will use are hibiscus flower powder, rose petal powder, and blue spirulina powder. This is the most visually striking of the 5 blends. Blue spirulina gives the preparation a deep jewel tone that gives the cacao a light indigo hue. Hibiscus adds a bright tartness that beautifully balances the bitterness of the cacao. Rose petal adds a soft floral sweetness that makes this blend feel genuinely tender. This is the blend for sitting with something important, for allowing rather than pushing. Hibiscus has documented anti-hypertensive and antioxidant effects, confirmed in multiple clinical trials, including research in the Journal of Nutrition. Rose has documented analgesic and nervine effects in animal and human studies published in the Iranian Journal of Basic Medical Sciences. Blue spirulina that was harvested from Lake Texcoco as a staple food contains phycocyanin, documented as a potent anti-inflammatory and neuroprotective compound in oxidative medicine and cellular longevity. Spirit element, the elevation blend. Spirit corresponds to the center and the upward direction. It is not a compass point, but the axis that connects earth to sky, human to divine, the known to the mystery. This blend is for ceremony, for meditation, for expanded awareness, and for the kind of quiet that allows something larger than the ordinary mind to be present. This is the blend that most closely honors the original intention of the fire ceremony, so use it with intention and use it with stillness. The 3 herbs that you will use are lion's mane mushroom powder, reishi mushroom powder, and blue lotus flower powder. This blend is the most complex and least sweet of the 5. Lion's mane adds a mild seafood-adjacent umami note that disappears entirely when combined with the earthy bitterness of the cacao. Reishi adds a deep woody bitterness that strengthens the cacao's own profile. Blue lotus adds a faint floral sweetness that lifts the whole preparation into something that genuinely tastes like a ceremony. A small amount of raw honey is recommended here to soften the bitterness without obscuring the depth. This is the cup you make slowly, in silence, and with purpose. Lion's mane and its NGF-stimulating properties have been confirmed in the phytotherapy research trial by Mori and colleagues, as discussed in our Dreams episode. Reishi has documented immunomodulatory and adaptogenic effects with extensive research in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology. Blue lotus contains apomorphine and nuciferine, documented as dopamine receptor agonists with mild psychoactive properties. Research in the Journal of Psychopharmacology has confirmed its traditional use as a gentle mood elevator and relaxant. So how do you bring all of this into your actual life in a way that is both genuinely beneficial and culturally honest? Here is a practical framework grounded in both the tradition and the science. Start with sourcing. The quality of your cacao is the foundation of everything else. Ceremonial grade cacao paste or powder should be made from heirloom variety Theobroma cacao beans, stone ground at a low temperature and sourced from Maya heritage growing regions in Guatemala, Belize, or southern Mexico. Look for brands that work directly with indigenous farming communities and pay fair trade prices. Brands including Aura Cacao, Cacao Laboratory, Maya Moon, and Keith's Cacao are among the most well-regarded sources that maintain direct relationships with indigenous growing communities. Create a dedicated preparation practice. Do not make your ceremonial cacao in the same distracted way that you make your morning coffee. Slow down. Heat the water intentionally. Choose your elemental blend with a specific intention in mind. What do you need today? Grounding, clarity, activation, flow, elevation? Let that question guide your blend selection. Honor the fire. You do not need a campfire or a ceremonial hearth to bring the spirit of the fire ceremony into your practice. A candle is perfectly sufficient. Before you prepare your cacao, light a candle. Acknowledge the tradition you are drawing from by name. Set a specific intention for your preparation, and use the flame as a focal point for your prayer or meditation while you drink. Use the silence. The Aztec and Maya did not consume ceremonial cacao while scrolling through their phones. The silence and stillness of ceremony were not optional elements. They were the conditions under which the medicine could work. Give your cacao practice a minimum 15 to 20 minutes of genuine quiet. No music, no conversation, no content consumption. Just you, the flame, the cup, the cacao, and the intention you brought to it. Name what you are doing honestly. If you are inspired by the Maya fire ceremony tradition and are creating your own personal practice informed by it, call it that. A cacao ritual inspired by Mesoamerican tradition, a mindfulness practice using ceremonial cacao. Not a traditional Maya ceremony unless you have been trained in that lineage and are authorized by that lineage to use that language. If you are facilitating this practice for others, the same honesty applies. Your participants deserve to know where this comes from and what you are and are not representing. That transparency is not a legal disclaimer. It is an act of respect for the tradition, for your participants, and for your own integrity as a practitioner. Today's Tea for Peace sponsored quick tip connects directly to everything we've discussed. When you are preparing any ceremonial beverage, whether it is cacao with an elemental herbal blend or a deeply intentional tea preparation, the temperature of your water matters more than most people realize. Research published in Food Chemistry confirms that water above 95 degrees Celsius degrades sensitive aromatic compounds and certain heat-sensitive phytochemicals, including some of the flavonoids we discussed in cacao. Preparing your ceremonial cacao with water heated to 85 to 90 degrees Celsius, just below a full boil, preserves the full pharmacological and aromatic profile of both the cacao and your herbal additions. The practice of paying attention to water temperature is itself an act of mindfulness. It asks you to slow down, to be present, and to treat what you are preparing as worthy of care, which is exactly what ceremony has always asked. Find Tea for Peace through the link in the show notes. Today, we traveled back 3,000 years to the Olmec civilization, where the first ceramic vessels containing cacao residue tell us that this plant has been in sacred human relationship longer than most of our current civilizations have existed. We walked through the Maya relationship with cacao as a divine gift connected to the very creation of human life. We explored the Aztec understanding of cacao as cosmic currency and a gift from Quetzalcoatl. We looked at the fire ceremony tradition that was always the center of the ceremony, and within which cacao was always a sacred element rather than the whole story. We examined the pharmacology of raw ceremonial cacao, theobromine, phenylethylamine, anandamide, magnesium, and the extraordinary flavonoid content, and understood why the ancient practitioners were right about the plant's power even before they had the biochemical language to explain it. We talked honestly about cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation and what the difference looks like in practice. And we built 5 elemental herbal cacao recipes, each one grounded in the directional cosmology of Mesoamerican tradition, each one pharmacologically synergistic, and each one genuinely delicious. The deepest thing I want you to take away from today is this. Cacao is not a trend, it is not an aesthetic, and it is not a marketing category. It is one of the oldest plant medicines in human history, held sacred by the civilizations of extraordinary sophistication, and it is still here, still potent, still offering itself the way Maya always said it did, from the center of its own body outward, like a heart that never stopped giving. When you prepare it with intention, with knowledge, with gratitude, and with honesty about where it comes from, you are not just making a hot drink, you are stepping into a lineage. And that lineage asks only one thing of you, that you receive it with the reverence it is always deserved. If this episode gave you something to think about, please follow the Beyond Horizyns podcast wherever you are listening so you never miss a future conversation. And come join our Horizyns community at www.horizynsinc.com. That's HORIZYNSINC.com. where you can meet like-minded individuals, find amazing products, and take workshops from our many curated vendors. Each week, we explore new ideas, traditions, and perspectives that help us live more balanced and meaningful lives. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing the kind of work that takes courage. And until next time, keep exploring what lies beyond the horizon.
We're going beyond horizons, where the mind